Hi, anyone and everyone. My name is Kim. I own and run the Humble Hermit LLC. Come as you are, Oracle Music Moment 80. I have two YouTube channels here on YouTube. I have a thriving, somewhat semi-viral TikTok account. I have two blogs, one where I air out my grievances and thoughts, and one where I write books for free to read. I have an Instagram account. I have a Facebook and a business Facebook. I do not do X, Twitter, whatever the hell you call it. Um, in 2022, I was 42, going on 42, and had decided that my marriage was over and I was no longer in love with my ex-husband, my husband at the time. And went to him to tell him that I wanted a divorce, that I was getting a divorce. I didn't really ask. I said I was getting a divorce. And we agreed to try to make it work, but like not even not not even like 2 days like 2 days in, I was like, no, this isn't working for me. And yeah, we eventually decided to get divorced, and we lived in the same house for about 5 months, separated. Although technically we were separated longer than that. This all started in June. I probably was sleeping in the guest bedroom like February or March of that year, because I had no interest. I mean, not only that, I didn't have a place in that bed. I never did. And yeah, we sold our house, and he moved to an apartment in Arlington Heights, and I bought my condo where I live now. And we actually got divorced January 4th of 2023. And I don't know if it's a woman thing. I don't know. Like, even though I'm the one that wanted the divorce, I was the only one that cried at the proceedings. It's not at all something I'm proud of. It is something that was it actually is the hardest thing I've ever had to do, was tell him that I was out, that I wanted a divorce. Because overall, he's a good man. It just was not the man for me. And I've said before on many of my reads, when I've talked about marriage and when I've used myself as an example, I've said, many times that I take full responsibility. One, because he takes no responsibility, and B, because I entered into that marriage knowing that there were issues that should have been figured out before the marriage. Meaning, those issues would have never been figured out before the marriage. There would not have been a marriage. So technically, I married someone knowing that probably not going to work out. Some of my family later on, like a year later, called me a failure. Oh, you couldn't make your marriage work. Are you supposed to make your marriage work? And don't get me wrong, like, I understand marriage is work. I'm not saying that, but if someone is unhappy in their marriage and they're no longer in love with another person and they just don't see it working out in the long run, why would you consider that a failure? Because let me tell you, like I said, it was one of the hardest things I had to do to go to my husband and tell him I wanted him to be my ex-husband. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do. So to tell me that that was a failure, no. That was probably the most courageous thing I've ever done in my life. Because that was brutal honesty. That was the two of us sitting down and talking about our marriage and talking, like me talking about myself and him talking about himself. That was brutal honesty there. There is nothing failure about it. That was nothing but courageous, not just on my side, but his side as well. So when my family member told me that I was a failure, honestly, I was just like, yeah, we no longer need to be in contact. I don't really put up with that kind of hate speech and that kind of behavior, you know? I had like 2 or 3 girlfriends tell me to just stay married, even though I was unhappy. One of them specifically said, "There's nothing for you out here." And I laugh because the first thought that I had was, do you think you're going to have to compete with me for a man? Because I'm not saying that that isn't a possibility, but at the same time, like, two very different women, two very different tastes in men, you know? And like I said, I had 2 or 3 friends tell me that. Like, okay. Like, so let me watch you get married and then decide it's not for you and you're no longer in love with that person. And let me tell you that and you tell me how you feel then. Yeah. Um 2 of those 3 people are no longer my friend. And the other one I hardly ever talk to. So, yeah. Um the reason why I wanted the divorce was because I got myself into a situation, like I said, I should have never gotten myself into. And if things had been discussed before the marriage, there would never have been a marriage. Because I put myself in the situation as every uh, typical housewife, basically. Like, I did everything for the both of us, for the household. I did everything. I did the cleaning, the cooking, the taking care of the. We didn't have kids. Thank God we did not have kids, but we had 5 cats. I did everything for the cats. I took out the trash. There were 2 summers where he couldn't mow the lawn, which was his one thing that he had to do, and I had to mow the lawn because he didn't line up somebody to mow the lawn for him. His brother in law, his nephew. Nope. It was up to me on top of everything else I was doing and working 70 hours a week. Yeah, mow the lawn, kid. Get out there and mow the lawn. I had to do everything. Like, I would, like I said, I would work 70 hours a week, and this man would go to work and then decide, like, oh, I'm going to take 2 hours of vacation and go home early and play video games. And I would get home late because, again, working 70 hours a week compared to his 30. And he'd be like, so what's for dinner? And it got to the point where I looked at him and I'm like, make your own fucking dinner. Like, did you make me dinner? Because, like, 70 hours a week, baby, and you're not even working 40. Um, I just always felt like I was the last person on his list, too. You know? Like, he always wanted to go on vacation. It was always where he wanted to go on vacation. He always wanted to go on vacation with his friends. Um, he couldn't even take my birthday off, when it was a weekday. Like, hey, can you take my birthday off? Like, let's do something. Oh, no, sorry, I don't have any vacation time. You don't have any vacation time? Because you used it all to come home early and play video games. Yeah, that's the man I married. And the sad thing is, like I said, I knew that's what I married. I knew that that's what I married. it's kind of funny because I will say this over and over and over again. One of my friends said to me when I was talking to her about getting a divorce and saying that, it was happening and da 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 da, and she goes, well, you knew what you had when you married him. And at first I was like, oh bitch, you did not just say that to me. But it was funny because the longer and longer I thought about it, she was right. Like that's what led to my epiphany a moment. Like if I had never went along and did everything for him like I was his mother instead of his wife, if I had set those boundaries before we got married, if I had crossed those T's and dotted those I's and drew the line in the sand, maybe we would still be married. Maybe we would never got married in the first place, like I said. But I did. I knew what I was getting when I got married, and I did it anyway. And I sometimes think, like we have this great expectation. Well, I'm changing, so you're going to change with me. And that's just not how people work. That's just not how people work. I was going through a phase in my life where I wanted somebody to take care of, and that was him. And then it just got to the point where, like, I did everything and I was starting to resent it because I was changing, right? Like, I was growing. I was coming out of this chrysalis. And to think that he should have to change with me, and it's just not how people work. If he doesn't want to change, he doesn't want to change. And he didn't want to change. And I had that epiphany moment where it was like, well, I can't make you change, but I'm changing and I'm moving on. So I guess that means we're done here. And I never, ever should have gotten into that relationship thinking somewhere down the line, well, if he needed to change, like he'll just change. He'll change for me. He'll change for the marriage. No, that's not how it works. And for other people to expect that, it's just very unrealistic, you know? And that was part of the realization for me. Like like when him and I tried to make it work, and I realized like 2 days in, I realized like he's not changing. He's not going to change because he doesn't think there's anything wrong with him. And that's fine. The only thing is now that he's out there dating, like a year and a half more later, almost 2 years later, I hope he's honest with himself about what he's looking for and what he wants. And I hope when he meets somebody, he's honest with them about it because he wants a mommy. He wants somebody to take care of him. And that's fine, but I'm not like that. I was raised to be independent from a very early age and take care of myself. And even though, like I said, I was going through a period where like I wanted to take care of somebody, like eventually you change. Everybody changes, in some type of way. Well, everybody, usually. And I just came out of that, like I was like, wait a minute, what the hell am I doing? Like this isn't my kid. This is my husband. Like there should be an equal give and take. Like I take care of him, he should be taking care of me. And that just was not the case. Like rarely ever. And I used this story really early on when I started reading tarot at the beginning of this year. I talked about it a couple times about how he got COVID, okay? And he took like a week and a half, 2 weeks off of work. They let him have whatever time he wanted off. And I got it like 3 days later. And for me, it's harder to take off from work. But at the time, we still had, like, we could still take time. Now we can't. But he's 3 days in, and his was light. Like he felt it, but like 2 3 days, like he was like 50% better, 60% better. He was better, like to the point where he was playing video games and he was almost normal. And I just got it. Like, I came home from work feeling like crap. The next morning, I took a test. I had it. I called off, I laid in bed from like 5 o'clock in the morning because I got up early and got dressed for work and then realized I just couldn't go. And I took the test and I was positive. So I had to text my boss. But from like 5 o'clock in the morning till like 4 or 5 p.m. in the afternoon, early evening, I laid in bed. And the longer I laid there, the worse it got. Like, I was body pain, coughing, congestion, like the whole works. Like, I didn't have no COVID light. I had COVID. And the now ex-husband comes in, and this is when I went to sleep in the guest room because I didn't want to get him, like, I didn't want it to keep going back and forth. So I went and slept in the guest room. So he comes into the guest room and he's like, "When are you making dinner?" "Excuse me, sir? Excuse me? I took care of you for 3 days and got you to the point where you're like this and you're still sitting at home doing nothing because you just don't want to go into work. And you have the nerve to come to me on my first day with COVID." And oh my God, I felt like garbage. I went downstairs. I made his dinner. I coughed in that dinner. I spit in that dinner. I don't, and I don't mean on purpose. Like, I'm sure I did because I was like and I wasn't even really like with it. So I'm sure I was coughing all over everything. Again, I didn't do anything on purpose, but I was sick. But I made him his dinner. I hope you enjoyed it, sir. I hope you enjoyed it. But yeah, I always use that story because, like, what does that even say? Like, I took care of you for 3 days, 2, 3 days, whatever it was, and you couldn't even make your own dinner. Like, he didn't even need to make me dinner. I don't even think I ate anything. I think when I made my plate, I took 2 bites and then I put it in the fridge. So, like, all he had to do was make a sandwich and eat a bag of chips. He couldn't even do that. But yeah, I think that was one of the first instances when I realized that I was on the road to being done. Like, I like, the train was pulling away from the station, and I was on it, but he was not on it, and that man was not going to catch up to get on it. And that was in 2021. That was like late spring, early summer. I think it was like May-ish, maybe June-ish, when we both got sick. Something like that. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I went through one of the worst periods of my life in 2022. One of them being because of my divorce, and the other one being because the person that I confided in about everything my whole life, from being a kid to 2022 when I was 42, my best friend of 30 plus years, I confided everything to her, my thoughts and my feelings about everything, and then including my divorce. And that ex best friend used everything I said against me in 2022 and absolutely destroyed any hope for a rekindling of friendship when she sexually assaulted me twice in 2022. So, this was part 5. Stay tuned for part 6.